Hello everyone and welcome back to the Whiskerwood Refuge for episode 5. As you can see around me, things kind of changed since the last episode. I learned that the reason the trees are not growing the apples is due to a bug, so that's not quite what we want, but I put it into the story for right now in the fact that they're just trees that have already been harvested, even though technically we haven't harvested them ourselves. Within redoing this orchard, I decided to use a creative tool called the Entity tool to create these fixtures in the orchard. While I like this empty space in between for some negative space, I also like to have this raised flower bed in this part of the community space. Anywhere that you see a bucket filled with apples or berries, I use the Entity tool with. The bucket itself I place down physically, but anything inside of it is not interactable. I also put down these barrels with berries and apples already harvested as if it was ready to get delivered. This cart is called a Halloween cart that I believe you can make in the furniture bench under the seasonal tab. I figured if these trees were going to look wild, I'll lean into that. I'll give it a little bit more of an unkempt area, and I think it turned out really good. In episode 3, I believe I teased we have a newcomer on the server. Now, it's time to meet them.
Hi, I'm Panda Princess, and we're excited to be part of the group here on Whiskerwood Refuge. I like cozy games, mostly decorating and making everything look really cute. But sometimes I like to kill monsters, but typically when I get scared I run away and scream, and then Woofy saves me. That's pretty much about it about me.
Now that we've met Panda, on to today's project, which is the barn. I'm gonna do the barn across from where I have the orchard and down over here by this other pond that was naturally occurring. I'm going to show you in a sketch what I have in plan. Here's like the idea of the sketch I had earlier. I'm still not sure what to do about it. So in Hytale, chickens can be in a coop. Meanwhile, the cows can go on a pasture. I'm not sure if I want to do like a barn vibe. I kind of do though. I kind of like the way barns look. I started with a quick rectangle, then I moved on to a bell-shaped roof. Realizing I drew the roof on the wrong layer, I decided to fix up the walls a little bit, adding them to their own layer. Next, I started to figure out the path and how it was going to match up to everything. I also had to figure out boundaries so that animals wouldn't be able to escape. While I want them to be free range, I have to make sure they cannot fall into the water, then there's no hope for them. Chickens can go into coops out the front for decor. I probably won't fill the coops out because I don't want too much lag on the server, but I do want it to be symmetrical. Now we have to figure out what the inside is going to look like. Usually there are stalls that the animals would go into. The other stalls I'm probably just going to make hay beds. We also need a feeding and watering trough. I'm going to make one of the stalls for storage. That way there's an easy access to dump things quickly. Nothing is set in stone though, so let's just dive into it. We probably have to clear up some weeds first, just to get it presentable. The one thing I did not show on the sketch was that I was thinking about having some horse stables to this side of it. So once we get the barn built, I was thinking about having a awning attached to it, and then we could park our horses in that part of the stables. They probably won't be connected to the cows and chickens. At least they'll be in the same area. It would make sense. All right, let's do this. We have put in the paths to hopefully streamline it a little bit better so views can be viewing. I have proceeded to connect the orchard path up to our storage path. And then sometimes in country roads, you have this type of diagonal intersection leading from one country road to another country road with some paved path in the middle. So I was kind of trying to convey that here. And anywhere that the dirt touches the road, it kind of looks a little bit darker, kind of looks a little bit more dirtier because the dirt road is touching concrete. So I tried to convey that with the darker blocks whenever the dirt path touched the cobblestone. These are the building blocks I'm probably going to be using. I'm going to do light wood for the roof because I thought that would give a nice contrast.
Okay.
I'm going to do a mostly red wood barn because of a red barn. I thought that looked really nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to trim it with the lightwood. And then at the very bottom, I was thinking about having some of the cooled magma stairs.
That sounds good.
I kind of liked the hardwood fence for the fence, though.
Yeah.
I was thinking that looked really nice against the red barn. So that's the palette I was thinking about using for this building.
I think they'll look really nice.
Once we figured out the dimensions of the barn, I started on the interior and Panda was starting on the exterior. I first started with the steps just so we could get to the upper levels of the exterior. I was figuring out what palette I wanted for the steps. That way I could complement the inside and outside. But then I realized I didn't know what I wanted for the inside either. So I figured we could just have a temporary setup for the steps before going on to the next part, which was figuring out what I wanted for the design for the inside. All of these are the greenhouse walls, which I thought looked really cool because the doors actually look like cattle panels that you might see dividing up actual barn stalls. Realizing I didn't know how to handle corners, I figured just put a pillar there and then I can have the walls connect, and I thought that looked really nice in the end to have all of the wall panels connect into a solid block. I decided to remove all the walls and add the panels now. Once the panels were done, I realized Panda was doing such a good job building the walls up, I didn't even realize that she was mostly done. I decided to extend the pillars all the way to the top where Panda had built. Panda then was asking me about the archway, and I figured to kind of give it a round look. That's not necessarily traditional with regular barns because we were going to have a big open space and I kind of wanted an arch there. So we were toying around with the different shapes and panels available to us till we finally figured out what we wanted. Then she wanted me to craft 2 coops so she could get a better visualization of it. I thought it looked really good. I figured now that we got the exterior kind of figured out, to start on the horse stable portion of it. I was trying to tell Panda that the horses were just going to climb right over the slab, so we would have to use the fence. However, if she wanted the slabs, we could put the fence on top. This was just a lot of tinkering around, figuring what style we wanted and how we wanted it to look. Then we figured to extend the magma steps around the horse stables. That way it could be one solid look with the barn. While she was taking care of that, I was dealing with the inside still. So I decided to just mass make it and see where we go from there. Just basically copying the design from the first section that we created. I decided to put the trapdoors down. This part is going to be where my portal will be, where all my incoming traffic, like my animals, will be stationed at. Then I thought having this decorative plank looked really cool on the corners there. The white wood and the mod white wood are not the same colors, so I just kind of continued with the vanilla white wood as the arch while keeping the darker white wood as the walls. Then I had to figure out how to handle the step situation. I'm not used to doing steps, let alone good-looking steps, but in the end, I think what I came up with was a very nice-looking staircase. It just was a lot of trial and error. I added these logs so people didn't start falling into that hole like I had just done. Rewinding a little bit backwards, I had started to do an outline of the roof. That way we could get a feel for what the outside could look like. Knowing that in the end, if I got the first section of the roof done, we just pretty much continue it all the way down. And I thought that was looking really good so far. But then I realized I was going to have the horse stable section and I needed to add a roof over there. Now comes the easy part, just layer after layer of this roof continuing all the way down. Now that we have the roof set up, I thought about starting on the second floor, so that way we could get some light in the upper floors as well as the lower floors, now that we don't have access to the light of the sky. I toyed around with floor patterns for a while until I finally landed on this pattern that I thought looked pretty stylish and cool. I figured I really liked how the white looked a lot lighter than the panels for the archway. And so I decided to continue that in the front and realized I really just like all of the pillars to be that bright of a white. I thought that bright white trim looked really, really nice. So we decided to go back and take away all of the planks and replace it with logs. I'm thinking that looks really cool. Where is it? Is it in my horse stables? Of course it is. Figuring that they spawn on grass, I don't quite know how Hytale creatures spawn, but I figured to just get rid of the grass and add some flooring to the horse stables as well. With some leftover flooring that I was using for the second layer of the barn, I decided to just fill up their entire stable with this flooring. I started on the far end of where the horses seem to be migrating to. But once I got to trying to move the horses away, they didn't want to move. They wanted to keep going to that corner. Then I realized if I moved the blonde horse, the 2 black-haired horses followed the blonde horse. So I'm not sure what type of mechanic that is, because one of these horses were not part of the blonde horse pack. Once I moved the blonde horse out of the way, it was smooth sailing from there. All I had to do was put the finishing touches on the barn, such as finishing up, closing off the top part where the ceiling meets the wall, as well as add some lights to it. Otherwise, I think this project is almost done. Just have to have some storage and the portal. Name it the barn so we know that the animals have to go to that teleporter. And then I also forgot about the fencing, but that's not hard to do. I have to do this little corner piece there for the time being because I couldn't figure out how to do it otherwise. And then, early on, we had 2 chickens that I forgot were in small crates. I'm sure they're grateful to be freed. But that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a good one. See you next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!